Yeah, we're looking at a book, and it's titled The Art of Letting Go.
We are going to extract the actual psychological mechanics of letting go. We want to give you practical tools from the source material to help you declutter your mind, process that emotional conditioning, and just fundamentally change how you interact with your own thoughts.
But to get to those deeper emotional layers, we really have to start with the surface level noise first.
Makes sense. Like, you can't unpack years of emotional baggage if your day-to-day mind is just a chaotic mess.
Exactly. So we have to look at the immediate mental prison we build for ourselves,
Yeah.
through overthinking.
Yeah, and there's a brilliant visual for this in the text. So imagine you are standing at the edge of a completely pristine, calm lake. The water is just like glass.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If you toss one single pebble into that lake, which represents a single thought, it creates a gentle, manageable ripple, and that's normal cognitive function.
Right. You have a thought, you process it.
But overthinking isn't tossing one pebble. It is picking up handfuls of gravel and violently hurling them into the water over and over again until the entire surface is just absolute chaos.
Wow, yeah. It illustrates perfectly how we disrupt our own baseline of peace. But to stop hurling the gravel, you have to understand the biological mechanism that's driving you to do it in the first place.
Right. The brain isn't just doing it for fun.
Exactly. I mean, the human brain was not evolved for happiness. It was evolved for survival. So what we are dealing with here is the brain's built-in negativity bias.
So it's basically constantly scanning the environment for threats.
Constantly. Like, thousands of years ago, a threat was acute and physical. A predator in the brush, right? Your amygdala, the brain's fear center, would flood your body with adrenaline so you could run.
But today, our threats are almost entirely social and emotional. It's the fear of public embarrassment or the dread of a looming deadline.
Or the anxiety of a really difficult conversation.
But the brain doesn't differentiate between a physical and an emotional threat, does it?
No, not at all. If you send an email to your boss and suddenly realize there's a massive typo.
Oh, the worst feeling. Your heart races, your stomach drops.
Yeah. Your brain fires the exact same physiological alarm bells as it would if you were being chased by a tiger. It gets stuck in this loop trying to solve a survival problem that doesn't actually exist.
Which is what leads to the spiraling. The amygdala kind of hijacks the prefrontal cortex, right? The logical part of your brain.
It's spot on, and you just lose all perspective.
Okay, wait. I need to pause here because I really have to push back on this framing for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Isn't analyzing a situation just being smart? Like, if I have a massive presentation tomorrow, running through all the potential questions and scenarios is just being well prepared. How is that a bad habit?
That's a great point. But there's a massive difference between preparation and rumination. The material actually refers to this trap as the illusion of control.
The illusion of control.
Yeah. See, preparation has a definitive endpoint. You make the slide deck, you practice the speech, and then you stop.
Okay, I track that.
But overthinking is the belief that if you just analyze the situation from every conceivable angle, you can somehow inoculate yourself against failure or against pain. You use anxiety as a shield.
Oh, wow. So you're trying to pre-feel the pain so it doesn't hurt as much when it happens.
Exactly. But life doesn't reward over-preparedness in that way. It rewards presence.
That makes so much sense.
When you're caught in that illusion of control, you aren't actually solving problems. You're just inventing new ones in your head.
Which drains the cognitive resources you actually need to handle whatever reality throws at you.
Precisely.
So how do you actually break that loop? The material brings up Sarah, right? The marketing manager.
Yes. Sarah's story is a perfect example of this.
So she makes a minor typo in an email at work. And instantly, her brain projects total catastrophe. Like, my boss hates me, I'm going to lose this account, I'm going to be fired.
And the source suggests breaking the specific spiral with cognitive diffusion. Basically, separating your identity from your thoughts.
Right, so she catches the spiral and she literally says out loud, that is just a thought, not a fact.
Yeah, and what you're doing there is forcing the brain to step back into the prefrontal cortex. You're shifting from being the victim of the thought to being the observer of it.
It creates like a psychological distance.
Exactly. And the material suggests another really fun tactic for this. Naming your inner critic.
Oh, yeah, giving it a ridiculous name like Doubtful Dan
Right.
or Anxious Annie.
I know it sounds a bit trivial on the surface, but the underlying psychology is incredibly robust.
How so?
Well, when the spiral starts and you say, oh, Dan is acting up again, you are radically disarming the power of the inner critic. You're reminding your brain that the anxious voice isn't the core of who you are.
It's just a conditioned pattern of neurons firing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, patterns can be interrupted.
Which brings us to Mark, the engineer. The material brings up a fantastic physical tool he used for this.
Ah, yes, the rubber band trick.
Right. So he wore a rubber band around his wrist, and every time he caught his inner critic taking over, telling him he wasn't good enough or that he was going to fail, he'd gently snap the band.
Yeah, that is what's called a somatic pattern interrupt.
A somatic pattern interrupt.
Yeah. When your brain is spiraling in abstract anxieties, the physical sting of the rubber band forces your awareness right back into your physical body. It literally halts the neural pathway in its tracks.
And then you immediately replace the thought. So instead of letting the brain default to, I'm not ready, Mark actively trained it to say, I'm learning.
Right. We're talking about neuroplasticity here, neurons that fire together, wire together.
So it's not just cheesy positive affirmations.
Not at all. Mechanically, it is about consciously building new, healthier neural pathways to replace the default negative ones.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit further. Snapping a rubber band or naming your inner critic handles the immediate symptom, right?
Yeah.
It stops the spiral in the moment. But what is actually causing the symptom in the first place? Like, if overthinking is like having too many background apps open on your phone, draining the battery, is it emotional baggage like a corrupted hard drive?
That's a really great way to put it, yes.
Like the foundational software itself is damaged, and that's why the apps keep crashing.
Exactly. That corrupted data fundamentally alters how your operating system runs. To visualize it physically, the material uses the analogy of a backpack.
Okay, the backpack.
Imagine walking through your entire life wearing a backpack. When you were born, it's empty. But every time you experience a betrayal, a deep disappointment, a rejection, you take a heavy brick and place it in that backpack.
Wow. And over the years, you just keep adding bricks. The weight becomes your new normal. You adjust your posture, your energy fades, and you don't even realize you're carrying it.
Because we normalize the burden, we actually mistake the weight for protection.
Right. And the source brings up Lena's story to show how this manifests in relationships.
Yeah, Lena's story is so common. So she had been cheated on in a past relationship, a really deep betrayal.
A very heavy brick.
Exactly. And she carried that fear into a new, incredibly loving relationship. Her new partner was loyal, but if he was, say, 5 minutes late coming home,
Her amygdala trips the wire.
she'd spiral into panic
Yeah.
because she was reacting to the ghost of her past, not the reality of the person standing right in front of her.
She was letting a situation that was already over dictate her current reality.
Right. You don't have to erase the memory of what happened. That's impossible anyway.
Yeah.
But letting go means releasing the meaning you attach to it.
Which requires a fundamental shift in how we view our own feelings. We tend to view negative emotions as punishments, things to just be avoided.
But the source offers a great paradigm shift. Emotions are simply messengers.
I love that. So grief is a messenger telling you how deeply you valued what you lost.
Yes. And anger is a messenger showing you exactly where your boundaries were crossed or where you were disrespected.
The problem arises when we refuse to let the messenger leave.
Exactly. Once the message is received and processed, you don't need to keep rereading the painful letter. You can just put it down.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, one of the absolute heaviest bricks in that corrupted hard drive of a backpack is guilt.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where the material makes a crucial psychological distinction that I think everyone really needs to hear. The difference between guilt and shame.
It is so vital for emotional healing. So, guilt is rooted in the prefrontal cortex. It is action-oriented. Guilt whispers, I did something bad. It evaluates a specific behavior.
Right.
But shame is rooted deep in the amygdala's threat response. It's identity-oriented. Shame screams, I am bad.
So guilt evaluates the action while shame attacks the core identity.
Precisely. Guilt can actually be a constructive pro-social emotion. If you hurt someone and feel guilty, it prompts you to apologize and grow.
It facilitates connection.
Yes. Shame, however, is purely destructive. It convinces you that you are fundamentally broken and unworthy of connection or peace. It drives isolation.
And the crazy thing is, so much of the guilt we carry isn't even based on objective truth. It's based on social conditioning, like Priya's story in the book.
Right. Priya felt immense regret and guilt for walking away from a relationship.
Yeah, she was consumed with it. Like, was I too harsh? Am I being selfish? She carried that massive weight until she realized she was simply conditioned to feel bad for choosing her own well-being over someone else's comfort.
The question you always have to ask yourself is this guilt actually mine to carry, or is it just the echo of someone else's expectations?
To help process this, the material offers a highly tangible tool called the release statement.
Yes, this is a great one.
You sit down with a physical pen and paper, not a digital screen, it has to be paper, and write out exactly what you are forgiving yourself for.
Like, I forgive myself for carrying guilt over a boundary I needed to set. Or, I forgive myself for staying in a situation longer than I should have.
And then you physically tear the paper to shreds, or you safely burn it.
The physical destruction is key here. You're engaging your somatic nervous system again. It isn't magic, it's biology.
By performing a definitive physical action, you send a concrete signal to your brain that the psychological contract you made with that specific piece of shame is officially terminated.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes complete sense for internal baggage. Tearing up a paper to release a bad memory or internalized shame is a great solo exercise. But what happens when the emotional weight is a living, breathing person who is currently intertwined in your life? Like, letting go of internal conditioning is one thing. Letting go of external tethers is entirely different.
It is significantly harder. Because carrying unresolved internal baggage heavily distorts our external reality.
How so?
Well, when we don't trust ourselves, we cling desperately to what is familiar, even when it's actively harming us. We become terrified of the void that forms when someone leaves.
I mean, we've all been there with friendships or relationships that have just run their course. The material brings up Amara's story to highlight this fear of outgrowing people.
Yeah, Amara and her best friend, Nina.
Right. They'd been friends for a decade. But over the years, the dynamic had become really draining and passive-aggressive.
But Amara kept making excuses because of the sunk cost fallacy. We've been friends for 10 years. I can't just walk away.
She was honoring the history instead of honoring her present reality.
Exactly. And the text provides what might be the most ruthless, clarifying question you can ask regarding your social circle.
Oh, this question is so good. If I met this person for the very first time today, would I want them in my life?
It cuts right through the nostalgia, doesn't it?
It really does. And if the honest answer is no, you have to permit yourself to outgrow them.
And you don't necessarily need a massive, dramatic confrontation. Sometimes letting go is just quietly matching their effort. You stop forcing the connection and you let the silence speak.
But stepping back creates an open loop in your brain. Like, the hardest part of outgrowing someone is the lack of closure.
Oh, for sure. The other person is rarely going to give you a neat, tidy ending that validates your feelings. They won't hand you the closure you're craving.
Which brings us to the goodbye letter. This is another really practical tool. You write a comprehensive letter to the person you are letting go of.
You acknowledge the good times, you articulate the pain they caused, and you explicitly state that it is time for you to move forward.
But, and this is the crucial part, you never send it.
Never. Because the closure isn't for them, it's for you. Closure is an internal biological process, not an external negotiation.
Wow, an internal biological process.
Yeah. When you write the goodbye letter, you are bypassing the need for their validation and giving your own brain permission to close the open loop.
It's taking your power back. And, this concept of surrendering the need for control scales up from individual people to how we handle life itself.
We treat control like a shield against uncertainty. The material uses a really profound river analogy here.
Right, imagine you are standing in a rushing river.
Trying to control every outcome in your life. Overanalyzing every decision, that is like trying to fight the current. You are exhausting yourself trying to force the water to flow in a direction it naturally isn't going.
While letting go is simply deciding to stop fighting, you stand in the river and allow the water to flow effortlessly around the rocks. You trust the current.
You stop resisting reality and start working with it.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting, though. I have another pushback.
Let's hear it.
If we are talking about flowing down a river, observing our thoughts instead of engaging them, and writing letters we never send, this all sounds incredibly passive.
Ah, I see where you're going.
It sounds like the advice is to just give up, drop your bags, and float aimlessly. How do you practice the art of letting go without losing your ambition or your momentum in life?
It is a phenomenal question, and it highlights probably the biggest misconception about this entire philosophy. Letting go is not passive surrender. It is fiercely, aggressively active.
Wait, really? How is it active?
Because what you are letting go of is the perfectionism and the fear of judgment that causes paralysis. You are letting go of the desperate need for a guaranteed, flawless outcome so that you can finally take messy action.
Oh, this hits home, like Dev's dilemma in The Source.
Yes. Dev is the perfect example of action as the cure.
So Dev had this great idea for a business, right? He spent months researching it, wrote like 10 different drafts of a business plan.
But he never actually launched the thing because he was terrified of failing publicly. He was completely paralyzed by his own overthinking.
And his friend finally told him the brutal truth. You're failing privately every day by doing nothing.
Failing privately by doing nothing, it's a gut punch. Overthinking provides the illusion of forward momentum, but you aren't actually moving. You need friction with the real world.
I love the pool analogy the text uses for this. Overthinking is standing at the edge of the swimming pool, calculating the exact angle of your jump, analyzing the temperature.
Worrying if your form will look foolish to the people on the deck.
Exactly. But absolutely none of that cognitive processing changes the reality of the water. Eventually, you just have to jump.
Because clarity comes after action, never before it.
Right.
We want the guarantee before we take the step. But the universe only gives you the data once you are in motion.
And motion can only happen in one place.
Yeah.
The absolute present moment.
Right.
We drain all our energy agonizing over the unchangeable past or trying to mathematically predict an unknowable future, and we completely abandon the present.
Which is the only place where you actually have agency. Anxiety cannot survive in the present moment. It requires a projected future to feed on.
The text mentions Zoe's story here. She struggled a lot with that future-based anxiety.
Yeah, and she used simple sensory mindfulness to anchor herself. When your mind starts spiraling forward into the what-ifs, you have to forcibly yank your cognitive resources back to the present.
And the material offers a fantastic somatic grounding tool for exactly this moment, the 3-2-1 technique.
It's so simple, but incredibly effective. So when you feel that wave of future dread wash over you, you stop wherever you are. You look around and verbally name 3 things you can physically see.
Like a lamp, a tree, a coffee mug.
Right. Then you name 2 things you can hear.
The hum of the refrigerator or maybe a car driving by outside.
Yeah. And finally, you name 1 thing you can physically feel. The texture of your shirt or the weight of your feet pressing into the floor.
3 things you see, 2 you hear, 1 you feel.
Mechanically, what you are doing is redirecting blood flow. You're forcing the brain to process raw, real-time sensory data.
Which pulls energy away from the amygdala's imagined future scenario.
Exactly. It grounds you firmly in your immediate physical reality.
It is a literal circuit breaker for your anxiety loop. You cannot be lost in a terrifying hallucination of next week if your brain is actively processing the texture of the chair you're sitting in right now.
Because right now is the only place you can make a choice. You can't change the past. You can't control the future. You can only choose how you act in this exact second.
So what does this all mean for us? If we synthesize everything we've pulled from The Art of Letting Go, it fundamentally comes down to this. Letting go is not about erasing your past.
Right. It's not about pretending bad things didn't happen to you or that you don't have flaws.
It is the conscious, daily choice to put down that incredibly heavy backpack. It's refusing to let the inner critic dictate your self-worth and refusing to let past shame dictate your identity.
And it is surrendering the exhausting, impossible task of controlling an unpredictable future. You drop all of that weight so you can actually engage with the present moment.
I think the most critical relationship you will ever have in this process is the one with your own mind.
Absolutely. As you apply these tools, the cognitive diffusion, the release statements, the grounding techniques, challenge yourself to speak to yourself like a coach, not a critic. Embrace the messiness of your own growth. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy of peace.
We've spent this entire deep dive talking about the art of dropping things, old pain, toxic people, the illusion of control. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
If letting go is a daily practice of unburdening yourself, what happens when you finally have empty hands?
Wow.
What new, incredible things are you now free to pick up that you simply didn't have the strength or capacity for before?
That is the ultimate reward of doing this work, the space you create.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions, keep challenging your own patterns, and above all, stay curious. We will catch you next time.